You are listening to Love Your Practice with Dr. Laura Mock. I'm a general dentist, a practice owner, and a certified life coach. I teach women who own dental practices to lead with intention and literally fall in love with their businesses. Keep listening and you will see how learning to love your practice turns into loving your life too. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of my podcast, Love Your Practice. I'm Dr. Laura Mock, and I'm here today. I'm going to be introducing Dr. Jennifer Stafford. She is another client of mine that I am interviewing in this series where I've just been interviewing clients, hearing their stories, hearing how coaching has benefited them. And Dr. Stafford is a really interesting and uniquely qualified dentist. She has been practicing for over 15 years, graduate of Minnesota School of Dentistry, and her practice is limited to TMJ, ortho, and sleep. She's got a fellowship with the ICCMO, which she's going to tell you about in this episode, and also certified with Vivos, plus a bunch of other really cool things that she does. Plus, she has a study club for other dentists who want to have a practice that's kind of like hers. So listen in while we hear about her journey and her coaching. Okay, so I would like to introduce to our podcast, Dr. Jen Stafford. Jen, thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Yes, of course.
So tell us more about you. You have a really interesting niche, and there's so many of my clients who would love to be where you're at, but like, where do you practice and what makes your practice different and special?
Yeah, so I'm in southern Wisconsin, Fort Atkinson, which is kind of right between Madison and Milwaukee. I'm in a smaller town. Um, I'm a third owner of a group practice. I have two partners, and we're currently working through a transition. One of the eldest partners is retiring, and we are having our associate buy in, so that's super exciting. And our practice is interesting because we have general dentistry here, but we also do a lot of specialty services. So I no longer do any general dentistry. I mainly work in the realm of airway, TMD, tongue tie, and I have two partners that also work in they see infants for tongue tie releases. I do more the school age children and adults. So that's kind of cool. We really have three practice entities in one. So Bender Kind and Stafford Dental is the main practice. And then we have the Vitaline Clinic, which is this TMD and airway, and then Wisconsin Tongue Tie Center, which is tongue tie releases. And then we have two myofunctional therapists. So pretty cool.
Wow, two myofunctional
Yeah.
therapists.
Actually, three. We're training a third one right now. Yeah.
Amazing. That is so
Yeah.
impactful. There's so many women who dream of having a practice like that because they can visualize how it would impact people's lives so well. But it's really challenging. Like, the blueprint for creating that doesn't really exist yet. You
It
kind of have
doesn't.
to like throw spaghetti against the wall and see
Mhm.
if it sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the challenge because I bought into this practice 2010. So 14 years ago. Um, and I was just obviously doing general dentistry. And when I bought in, I was 2 years out of dental school. This was the first practice I had started at. So this is the only place I've ever been. And I immediately, when I joined the practice, started learning orthodontics, mainly not because I really had much of an interest in ortho at all, but really because the eldest dentist, the one that was going to be retiring and I had come on to really replace, had stopped doing ortho, and we had enough capacity that it was a service I could add and immediately have patients. And my partner, Mike, had been doing ortho for 15 years, so I had an automatic mentor. So I went and started to learn ortho from Dr. Jay Gerber, and he also taught TMD. And so what was really interesting is I was a pain patient myself, had gone through my entire adult life with migraine headaches. I mean, in dental school, it was like 15 migraines a month. It was all the time. I had a headache all the
Every other
time.
day, honey.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really bad. So but my mom had been a pain patient and that was her life. So to me that was, well, you take after your mom, this is normal. I mean, I'd seen all the neurologists, I'd seen dentists because I also had TMJ. I just didn't know that the two conditions were connected. And so that's just how I thought I was going to live my life. And so, I was at one of my ortho seminars and I was learning, it was like a series of 4 different weekends, and the instructor came up to me, Jay, and he had said, I can see you're in a lot of pain. I can help you. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell people I had migraines. To be honest, my partner, Mike, who was there with me, he's like, "Oh, you get migraines?" He didn't know. I just didn't say anything. And so I let him help me, and he created an orthotic for me, a neuromuscular orthotic. And I really don't have migraines anymore. I mean, immediately that next week, my headaches were gone. And so it was that impactful that right out of school, I knew that that's what I had to do, but there's no blueprint.
Mm-mm.
So I knew it was my passion to first learn how to provide that service, but then how do you integrate that? And how do you integrate that into a group practice? I mean, it was a lot of trial and error for me. And then the more I learned, the more I realized I did not know. So then that led down the airway rabbit hole, and then that led down the tongue tie rabbit hole. And it just, yeah, here
They
we
are
are.
rabbit holes too, aren't they?
They're all big rabbit holes, right?
The
And
more
here
you
we
learn,
are.
the more
And
you realize you don't know, and then you have to keep on taking
mhm.
courses, doing study clubs, and now
And
you're
it's
in a master's program, right?
I am, yeah, yeah. And so it's interesting because it's just all interconnected. And so I'm kind of a information nerd and I love learning stuff. So the more I learn, the more I realize, okay, I need to learn. And I never wanted to be able to, having been a pain patient myself, I never wanted to be able to just solve part of the puzzle and help someone partially. And so, as I went down my own journey and was getting treatment, then I realized, okay, well, I need to provide that service as well. Oh, you have a tongue tie? Okay, well, let's investigate that. Right. And so I just kept building upon it. I've always wanted to be able to help my pain patients as quickly as I can, um, but as completely. Right. If you start sending a pain patient to multiple different providers, that becomes really stressful for them. So here we are. Yeah. And then, what's interesting is I never cannot learn. So yeah, now I'm doing this master's in orthodontics program because throughout all of this, I still do ortho. So yeah, I forgot to mention. So ortho is a big part of my practice too. So ortho, airway, TMD, tongue tie. Um, and I've started to really dislike learning an orthodontic system. I like to learn, I want to know the why. What are the, why am I doing what I'm doing? I don't want to learn just an appliance. Why am I using that appliance? Or is there a better one I could use? Or what's the ultimate movement I'm trying to get or development I'm trying to get? And I feel like for general dentists, so much of the education out there is geared towards an appliance system,
Yeah.
or a cookie cutter. Here's what you need to do if they're in crossbite. Here's what you need to do if they're class 2. Here's what you need to do if they're class 3. But there's not a lot of physics and mechanics taught. And so I wasn't happy and satisfied with that. So I wanted to go through an orthodontic master's program. I don't really necessarily see myself taking boards, but I at least wanted to get a master's behind my name. And there wasn't one that I was super happy with here in the United States. So I'm taking a master's program through a university in Spain. It's a neuromuscular orthodontics program, 2-year program. So I'm in the middle of that. But it's really good because I'm learning mechanics and all the why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do next. And pretty soon you'll probably be teaching your own courses and have a flock of dentists who are like, teach us how to only
Ah,
do ortho and TMD so we don't have to pick up our hand pieces anymore and we can
yeah.
help people in a different way.
And it didn't start out that way. I think it's only been within the last 2 years where I have specialized and completely gotten out of general dentistry, because TMD is not the most profitable way to practice dentistry. The, y- you have to have passion behind it, and it's a hard model to be profitable on. So like TMD was my hobby and the general dentistry was my production for a long time until I figured out how to be profitable. And part of that was actually through coaching and valuing what I do and not giving it away and things
Yeah.
like that. But that was hard for me to figure out. I kind of felt like I was holding on to the general dentistry only because I had to, not because I wanted to. And so I did have to use that to supplement until my practice grew to the point where I was booked out so far that, okay,
Yeah.
that needs to be all I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just think there are so many of my listeners who are like hanging on every word you say right now, because I know a lot of women, they learn about this airway stuff and they're like, I want to do more of this, but I don't know how.
Hmm.
So
That's tough because there's so many, like, what course do you take? What program do you enter? Like, where do you start? That was always the really difficult thing for me. It's like, is this a good course or not? Do I start with this? And one organization that I found really helped me was ICMO, International College of Craniomandibular Orthopedics. And I'm really heavily involved in that organization because I felt like it was very evidence-based. And again, they're not necessarily teaching a system, but principles and anatomy and how we can help patient and connect all the dots. And so we have an annual symposium, and that's where I was introduced to them. And then at that annual symposium, you like most symposiums, it touches on a lot of different topics, but all the topics were surrounded around TMD, airway, ties, pain, orthodontics. And so then through attending those courses, I'm like, okay, now I know I need to go listen to this particular person and dive into that a little more. Okay, next. And so then it helped me narrow down who I needed to go get the education with. That was really helpful for me, for
is
sure.
that what you would recommend for someone who wants to do more and they're not quite sure where to start, is to
I think the ICMO symposium is a really good way to start. We're a small organization. Our symposiums are usually only 100 to like 150 dentists. So it's smaller, but that's the great part, is like everybody's so willing to come up and share with you where their journey began and help you to figure. I mean, even over drinks, right? It's like, okay, you go to the classes, but then
maybe
everyone hangs
especially
out afterwards, and that's where the great conversations happen. And they're so welcoming to any new members. It's a great, to me, that was my first ICMO meeting. I was going really to just get my fellowship because I'm like, well, I need to have some sort of credibility. So I'm going to go take this test, and then I don't know, I'm expecting it to be a stuffy old man club, and I'll be the invisible young female dentist in the corner, and I'll go home. And I went to this symposium, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, home. This is like, everyone was so kind and willing to share their knowledge, and they weren't stuffy old men. And there was all different ages and a lot of males, but also a lot of female
oh
dentists.
my
And it
gosh.
was really, whoa, what is this? Right. So that's where I would recommend starting. Within that organization, I also started a study club, and that's super new. I started that last year because, again, I also felt like there just needed to be another platform where we could get together and share authentic ideas and not have it be product driven or sales driven. And
Mhm.
so that has been really cool. That'd be another, you could contact me and that'd be another cool place to begin.
Does your study club have like social media or a
We,
website?
well, not really, because it's really new.
Okay. So like if
No,
somebody wants to talk to you about your study club, how,
email email me.
okay, all right. So it's okay if we put your email on our study
Yeah,
notes?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
we'll put that and then we'll put the International College of blah 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 blah. What is it? What did you call it?
International College of Craniomandibular Orthopedics.
That.
Say that after a few drinks at the bar.
I can't say that, but I can say Agrigidibacter actinomycetum comitans. So
That's even more impressive.
thank you. I had to practice. I mean, I just really felt like I needed to throw that out there, but okay.
That's a good
All
one.
right. So we will put that in the website notes for the show and your email address.
Yeah, awesome.
So, okay. So we're now that we're all in awe of you, your
No.
accomplishments and how many people you help and all that stuff. Let's get into the nitty gritty because nobody calls me unless things are painful. So,
Yeah.
tell me about how you ended up in coaching.
So I think, well, bottom line, I wasn't happy. And so, but part of what bugged me about not being happy is that, like on paper, I should have been living my dream. Right. So I've always been just this odd person that's always had a 5-year goal. I mean, my mom can even remember when I was like 5 years old, I had a 5-year goal. And so I always did. And here I am. And I think it's been about 2 years. So here I am. I'm 40 years old. I'm a third owner in this very successful practice. I was getting to the point I was just doing the dentistry I was loving. I was transitioning away from general dentistry.
Mhm.
Um, I'm involved in this organization that I love. I had accomplished everything that I had set out on paper to do, and I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And that really struck a chord. But I pretended to be happy. Because on paper, I've accomplished my goals. I
Yeah.
should be happy. And so to everybody else, it wasn't like I was walking around long faced and unhappy. I mean, no one would have really known except those closest to me. And I had a good friend comment to me. We hadn't seen each other in a little while. And she said, okay, spill it. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, you're miserable. And so what is going on with you? And I said, no, I'm super happy. And she goes, and you're a liar and you're faking it. And so let's figure this out. And that was kind of the first time that I realized, wow, I'm feeling this and other people are noticing it. And so I need to do something. And so I knew I needed to get like physically healthier. I had let that go and I wanted to get back into being physically active and running. And so I needed physically to lose some weight and get healthier with my nutrition and all the things, right? But then there's the mental component, right? And so I'm like, okay, I need to do something. So in my past, I'd done counseling before, mostly in regards to my marriage, and that was great and it helped a lot. But I also knew that there was a practice component to my unhappiness. So I started thinking, well, maybe I should look for a life coach. And then I'm like, oh, are there any life coaches that are dentists? Oh, are there any life coaches that are female dentists? And then I found you.
Oh,
So, when I found you, Laura, I didn't even really know what I was looking for, other than I knew that I had had this pressing unhappiness, and I knew I needed to do something about it. And I knew that my covering it up wasn't working anymore.
yeah.
That's where that kind of all came about.
I mean, we really get good at covering it up, don't we?
Oh yeah,
We have
that's
to put on a
super
pretty
good.
face, a happy face for our
Yeah.
team and our patients. And then we come
Mhm.
home and we would put it on for our kids too, but we're too tired
Yeah.
to do that, but we just keep on continuing to plaster on this happy that we got
Mhm.
taught to do when we were younger.
And it's exhausting. I mean, I think that's ultimately why I had let some of my like my health go. I've always been a runner,
Mhm.
but instead of running, I'd choose to have a glass of wine and sit on my porch and watch Netflix. That's not me, but it had morphed into that. And it, it was all tied. And I think a lot of my unhappiness, I believe when we first talked, I had said, I feel like I am trapped and I feel like I have no control over where my life is going. And it's this person's fault I'm trapped. It was a lot of me blaming other things on why I'm trapped, right? And so I can't do anything about it. I'm just trapped and I'm unhappy, And I remember that being, I don't know if those were the exact words, but I remember that being a resounding thought in my head. Like I'm
Mhm.
just trapped.
Yes, I do remember you feeling trapped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but what changed for you after enrolling in coaching?
Well, I realized I wasn't trapped. Um, that was just something my brain was telling me. So, it's really easy. It's really hard to work on yourself, and it's really easy to blame others or situations for things you're not happy with. And because that's the go-to for our brains, right? Our brains are trying to protect us, so it's not our fault.
No.
It's somebody else's. And so I think just being able to learn the tools, how to sit back and really evaluate a situation and tell yourself how you want to feel. What is the outcome you want? How do you want to feel? And then work backwards to then create a new model or a new way. My favorite line of yours is, let's make a model of this. And I'm like, oh, I hate you. I don't want to make a model of this. Um, but it's being in yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. It's good. No, learning how to be intentional about your thought processes so that there's not a whole lot that has really changed for me from a structural standpoint from my practice. I came in feeling trapped in my marriage. I came in feeling trapped in my practice. I came in feeling trapped as a mom. And I am still married to the same man. We've been married 20 years. I don't feel trapped. That there's nothing that changed in our marriage. What changed is how I think about myself and value myself, but also um, how I evaluate now situations and things that happen, right? Same thing with my practice. Nothing's changed in my practice. I was a third owner 2 years ago, and I'm still a third owner now. Um, I'm still part of this group practice. Do we have challenges? 100%. You know, do I see eye to eye with my partners all the time? Absolutely not. I have strong opinions and I'm kind of a bulldog, and I have partners that have strong opinions. We don't see eye to eye all the time,
Mhm.
but I know how to have those conversations and how to reel myself back. And when I don't know, I rely on you. So, and then the same thing with my kids, like nothing's changed. I just look at it different.
Yeah, you do.
I don't,
You look at things differently now, and you have tools to guide you if you wanted to look at something else differently.
yeah, yeah.
The tools
I
are the same no matter what the situation is.
It is. It is. And I think the other thing is I've learned to love myself, and I tell myself I truly believe I am enough. Whereas 2 years ago, I don't know that I believe that. And so what's really interesting is, maybe part of what drove me to learn all the things I learned and get to where I was because I was striving to be something better,
Mhm.
right? And then I finally got to that point and I'm still not happy, and I still, part of it, didn't believe I was enough. I'm still, so then there's a part of your brain that goes, well, if I change that, will I still be successful? Will I still strive to do good things?
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I do believe I'm enough. And I am genuinely proud of what I've accomplished and who I am. But I also, that drive to still learn and want to grow and do more is still there. So it's just that I think my brain recognizes it as something different, if that makes sense. Before my brain kind of recognized that drive to continue to learn is because I need to be better. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. But now it's, I need to be better just because
It's
I
fun to
want
be
to
done.
be. I
Yeah.
just want to be.
So just to clarify, let me make sure I understand this right. There was a part of you before that believed that if you were satisfied with you and believed that you were enough, that that would leave you with a risk of being mediocre.
Yeah. I mean, definitely that was a part of it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
This is a
Yeah.
very common problem that I run into with my
Yeah.
clients is that they believe that if they give themselves grace, or if they make space for making a mistake, or they say I'm okay the way I am, that puts them in danger of not being good enough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they hold on to that fear. And it's interesting because it paralyzes us. It makes it harder to learn and
Hmm.
makes it harder to try new things because we're afraid that if it's not perfect, um that we have to think even less of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So to let go of that is pretty amazing. To
Mhm.
not have that piece anymore,
Mhm.
to try new things just because, hey, that seems fun, or to try and learn a new skill, not because, oh, I was doing a bad job before, but try to learn a new skill just because, hey, I want to add that. I want to learn this new
Migraines.
skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Then
cool.
you
And it works. It does. It works.
and you get to have a better time
Yes.
because
You
you don't
do
have
get
to
to have
give yourself such a hard time all the time.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the weird thing. Like structurally, nothing's changed in 2 years, but but mentally, emotionally, happiness wise, everything's changed in two
Well,
years.
I mean, I do have to say that in these 2 years, you have really stepped up in where you're taking your practice. Like 2 years ago, you
Yeah,
weren't
yeah, yeah.
your practice is on fire.
Yeah,
And as
it's
far as like
better. It's
your
better.
leadership and where you're going with your team and dropping insurance contract, there's just so many things.
Yeah, I guess I meant structurally, like I didn't sell out and go start a whole new practice.
No, but
I
you
guess that's
kind
where,
of
what's that? But that
you're
was an
maybe
option.
gonna.
It was an option, right? We all have, it was a choice. But no, that's what I mean by structurally. Like I'm still at the same place. I still have partners. But yeah, I guess if you look at the direction of my practice, it's very different.
Oh, it's
We
amazing what you've
we
done.
we drop we dropped Delta in February, and we are a completely fee for service office now. And we're we're in southern Wisconsin. We're a Midwest practice, and like 70 to 80% of our patients had Delta.
Mm.
So that was really a big undertaking.
That's a
But we're
big,
doing well. We survived. We're still here.
yeah.
We went through a quarter already
Mhm,
without being in network, and all is good.
mhm. So it's been 2 years for me since I dropped mine, and it hasn't been a perfect path, and there have been slow quarters. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna let anybody think that my income has remained the same. There have been good quarters and there have been hard quarters. But what I tell myself, and this is coaching too, because I'll start to feel that insecure feeling. And then I'll go, oh, Laura, you're feeling insecure. What are you telling yourself right now? I'll
Yeah.
have this little conversation with myself. And then once I've kind of settled into that, I'll say, all right, Laura, so you're not getting rich off of this quarter, but you still are in practice and you have all the space you need in your practice to set the foundation for where you are going. And
Yeah.
because you made the sacrifice this year, every year after this is going to be better and better because now you are in charge instead of the insurance companies.
And you can lean into the numbers too. Like I just went through that whole, our schedules are not mine because I've been fee for service for a while, but some of the doc schedules are pretty open. And we're coming from a place where we were booked out a good 2 months. I mean, we were never open. And so I started having and then last week we had a really low collections week. So then I'm like, is it all falling apart? I'm not doing a good job leading this practice. And I'm the one who drove the fee for service change. And so I also have a practice coach that meets with all the doctors. And so we met with our practice coach and she's like, well, let me share your KPIs with you because you obviously didn't look at them prior to your very emotional rant. Like, okay, well, that's normal. And so we were up this year. I think our gross production had remained the same. Our net production was up 11% and our collections was up 11% from last year, same time. So, and we've had more time to work on our practice, our team. So,
And spoil your patients.
for
You're not
sure.
running to the next person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you told me that story because this is another thing that we do, and I do it too, is we start to catastrophize. And when we do that, we tend to not look at the facts.
Yeah. I'm good at that. We've had lots of
Yeah.
conversations on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm glad that your practice consultant was like, and now we're going to get out a spreadsheet. See, yeah. And
Stafford's catastrophizing again. And so I'm going to reel her back in. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I am just tickled that you were able to take advantage of this coaching and also that you would tell us a little bit about your journey here on the episode of the podcast. And just wonder, before we go, is there anything else that you want to point out or any words of advice that you have for any ladies listening who are kind of in the middle of that I'm pretending to be happy phase of their career? What would you tell them?
Don't pretend to be happy. If deep down something's not right, deep down you're feeling unsettled, you don't have to remain there and you don't have to pretend to anyone. You can do something about it. And it doesn't, I think the scariest thing for me was that it would mean it changed who I was, like the drive piece, right? But B, I also was scared that is it gonna change my life in a bad way? Am I gonna have to make some super hard decisions? And all of a sudden I'm gonna have to, if I'm unhappy and I admit that I'm unhappy, am I gonna have to sell my practice and start over? Am I gonna need to get a divorce? Am I gonna, right? Like in my mind, I'm blowing these things up. And the answer is no, not if you don't want to. Like as you sort through this, you get to decide. You have choices. So if you are feeling unhappy, address it because it doesn't go away. It just sits. And then it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. So we're super blessed in dentistry that we get to really choose our path and what kind of dentistry we do. Like we're in a really cool profession. Yes, there are a lot of things in our profession that are frustrating, but a lot of those surround around interns and we get to choose if we want to deal with the insurance companies or not. We get to choose if we want to tolerate abuse from our patients or not. We get to choose these things. But if we're not happy and if we don't have the tools, we won't really know how to choose these things.
Yes. So that's the thing, is that we can choose, but most of us don't.
Because we don't know how and
react
it's
to
scary.
what other people want us to do. And also we avoid change because change feels scary to a brain. And so a brain will give you a jillion reasons not to change.
Yeah.
So most of the time we don't, but we can. And I would toot my own horn here and say that coaching helps you see the difference and
Yeah.
lets you be intentional with where you want to go next.
100%. That's why I say, like, don't live in the unhappiness, because it doesn't mean in order to be happy, you have to make big, scary changes. It means you get to make big, scary changes if you want to, or you get to just choose happiness in your current situation if you want to. Like, it teaches you how to have a choice,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah. Because as my regular listeners know, I'm always like, hey, sell that practice and move to Montana and sell lavender for a living if you want. You don't have to stay where you are if you don't want to.
And if in the self-discovery you decide you want to, well, then that's amazing. You're that much happier.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you can go follow my friend, Dr. Laura Brenner, who helps people transition out of dentistry, right? You could go do that route. But many of my clients say best case scenario would be that I would learn to love where I am right now.
Yeah.
That I don't have to make those
And
big.
I would say that defines my journey. I learned to love where I was, and I learned to embrace the practice I was in and take an active role in managing and controlling it, not a passive role in this is what I have to do and this is what someone else is telling me to do.
Yeah, because you absolutely could have stayed there. Like your brain would have been completely fine with just staying there, believing that you were trapped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which
Right.
wasn't cool, not fun. And
No,
I'm having so much more fun now. So that's
now you're choosing.
now I get to choose.
So proud of you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us today and for sharing that. I'm positive that your story will be so fascinating to many of us. And for anyone listening who is wanting to make that sort of change, there's a couple of things you could do. You could go back to the very beginning of my podcast and listen to when I really talk deeply into coaching issues, like how to identify what you're thinking and feeling and how to change your feelings. Or you could schedule a consultation with me and we could just chat. And those are two things you could definitely do. She's giving a thumbs up for those of you who's listening. Yeah, she's like, yeah, do that. But yeah, I'm here for anyone, anyway, either way. So thank you again. And we'll see you on the other side.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Love Your Practice with Dr. Laura Mock. I would love to meet you. To join our movement, find the Facebook group called Love Your Practice and request to join. If you can't find it, just send me a message and I'll add ya. You'll find me there helping all of my ladies to fall in love with their businesses and have a better life.